at Radio Free America. This is Uncle Sam with music and the truth until dawn. Right now, I've got a few words for some of our brothers and sisters in the occupied zone. The chair is against the wall. The chair is against the wall. John has a long mustache. John has a long mustache. It's 12 o'clock, Americans, another day closer to victory. And for all of you out there on or behind the lines, this is your song.
If we look to the answer as to why for so many years we achieved so much, prospered as no other people on earth, it was because here in this land we unleashed the energy and individual genius of man to a greater extent than has ever been done before. Freedom and the dignity of the individual have been more available and assured here than in any other place on earth. The price for this freedom at times has been high, but we have never been unwilling to pay that price. Those who say that we're in a time when there are no heroes, they just don't know where to look. The sloping hills of Arlington National Cemetery, with its row upon row of simple white markers bearing crosses or stars of David, they add up to only a tiny fraction of the price that has been paid for our freedom. Each one of those markers is a monument to the kind of hero I spoke of earlier. Their lives ended in places called Belleau Wood, the Argonne, Omaha Beach, Salerno, and halfway around the world on Guadalcanal, Tarawa, Pork Chop Hill, the Chosin Reservoir, and in 100 rice paddies and jungles of a place called Vietnam. Under one such marker lies a young man, Martin Treptow, who left his job in a small-town barber shop in 1917 to go to France with the famed Rainbow Division. There on the Western Front, he was killed trying to carry a message between battalions under heavy artillery fire. We're told that on his body was found a diary. On the flyleaf, under the heading, "My Pledge," he had written these words: "America must win this war. Therefore I will work, I will save, I will sacrifice, I will endure. I will fight cheerfully and do my utmost as if the issue of the whole struggle depended on me alone." We must realize that no arsenal or no weapon in the arsenals of the world is so formidable as the will and moral courage of free men and women. It is a weapon our adversaries in today's world do not have. It is a weapon that we as Americans do have. Let that be understood by those who practice terrorism and prey upon their neighbors. As for the enemies of freedom, those who are potential adversaries, they will be reminded that peace is the highest aspiration of the American people. We will negotiate for it, sacrifice for it. We will not surrender for it now or ever. We are Americans.
All right, well, that was the beginning of the show there. So, yeah, it's Memorial Day. We're going to have a Memorial Day show. Dead Horse, you go out and do stuff on Memorial Days. You make an effort to do that. You're joining us tonight. We had Potatoes jump in. You went shooting today, right?
No, I never made it today.
Okay, well, you're planning on it. And then we got people joining us on the YouTube side. And, of course, we're simulcasting. We're on gun channels. So, that was a pretty decent one. Of course, I'm watching the video to it, and that was pretty stirring watching the footage and stuff as that was Reagan doing his thing. So, yeah, if anybody that wants to say any stories or whatever, the whole point here is to have a conversation, right? So today let's have a conversation about where we are.
One thing that people don't realize and I haven't heard mentioned, today was the 150th Memorial Day.
Oh, that's interesting.
So that kind of is a significant number. I haven't heard very many people mention that at all, that it was the 150th Memorial Day. I haven't really heard anyone mention that except for the service that I went to this morning.
Yeah, I had never heard that. I didn't know that. That's cool.
So I guess I can't show this, but Midnight Post sent me a thing that's 10 minutes long here. That's the history of the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. So we'll let people take a couple minutes to listen to this and throw in whatever comments, and then we'll come back and hit comments and go from there. So this is from the, what did it say? Some public records. It's a government-made documentary, I guess, info piece.
Here rests in honored glory an American soldier known but to God. Each footstep is so precise that indentations have been worn into the mat.
Okay.
Exactly 21 steps are taken to cross the tomb. The soldier stops and faces the tomb for 21 seconds. He turns, places his weapon on his opposite shoulder, and waits for another 21 seconds. Then another 21 steps are taken to cross back. 21. The number symbolizes the 21-gun salute, the highest honor given to an American or foreign dignitary. 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, the tomb is guarded, regardless of weather. Nothing deters the guards from carrying out their duty. Since 1937, the U.S. Army has perpetually guarded the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. In 1948, the 3rd U.S. Infantry Regiment, also known as the Old Guard, assumed the duties of protecting the tomb. It's considered one of the highest honors to serve as a guard for the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. Many will volunteer to serve in this position. Only a few will be accepted into training, and only a small percentage of those soldiers will actually serve as guards. In fact, the badge that identifies a soldier as a tomb guard is the second least awarded decoration in the entire U.S. Army.
Whoa! And order. Remain as directed. Order. Act now. Ready. Fight! Ready then. Look!
Directly in front of the tomb is a memorial amphitheater, which seats 3,500 people and has hosted state funerals and military ceremonies, as well as the funeral services for each of the unknown. Every U.S. president since 1921 has spoken here to commemorate Memorial Day. The Memorial Amphitheater was the dream of Judge Ivory Kimball, who wished to have a place to honor America's defenders. President Woodrow Wilson placed the cornerstone on October 15, 1915. Inside the cornerstone is a box that contains several items, including a Bible, the Declaration of Independence, the U.S. Constitution, and a U.S. flag. The Memorial Amphitheater is constructed mainly of Vermont quarried marble. Construction took several years to complete, and the Memorial Amphitheater was finally dedicated on May 15, 1920. The Memorial Amphitheater display room houses the American flags that were draped on the caskets of the unknowns, as well as the medals that were presented to them. The Tomb of the Unknown Soldier was built to receive the remains of a single unknown service member from World War I. The remains of the World War I unknown were selected by U.S. Army Sergeant Edward Younger, a highly decorated soldier from World War I. Sergeant Younger is also buried in Arlington National Cemetery in Section 18. 4 caskets containing the remains of the unknown soldiers were placed in front of Sergeant Younger. He placed white roses on one of the caskets, and those remains were officially chosen as the unknown soldier who would be buried in the plaza. The unknown soldier was officially interred on November 11, 1921. Eventually, Congress approved a permanent monument to mark the tomb of the unknown soldier. A design competition was held, and the winning design was by Lorimer Ridge. A 56-ton marble block was quarried in Ewell, Colorado. The block was inscribed with the words, "Here rests in honored glory, an American soldier known but to God." The marble sarcophagus was placed in 1931 over the grave of the World War I unknown soldier. Over 20 years later, Congress authorized an unknown from World War II and the Korean War to be buried at the tomb of the unknown soldier. Two candidates from World War II, one from the Atlantic Theater of Operations and the second from the Pacific Theater of Operations, were placed in identical caskets and brought on board the USS Canberra, where they were placed alongside the Korean War unknown. Navy Hospital Corpsman First Class William Charette, who was the Navy's only living enlisted recipient of the Medal of Honor, made the final selection of the World War II unknown. Four candidates from the Korean War unknown were disinterred from a cemetery in Hawaii. Army Master Sergeant Ned Lyle made the final selection of the Korean War unknown. President Eisenhower awarded the World War II and the Korean War unknown the Medal of Honor, and on May 30th, 1958, they were buried alongside the World War I soldier. The Vietnam War unknown was selected by Medal of Honor recipient Marine Corps Sergeant Major Alan Kellogg Jr. The selection ceremony was conducted in Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. As with the Vietnam unknown, thousands paid their respects to each of the unknown service members as they lay in state at the rotunda. On May 28, 1984, the casket of the Vietnam unknown was transported to Arlington National Cemetery, where President Ronald Reagan presided over the ceremony. President Reagan presented the Vietnam unknown with the Medal of Honor, and his remains were laid to rest between the World War II and Korean War unknown. A decade later, a published article claimed the Vietnam unknown was potentially Air Force First Lieutenant Michael Blassie. Eventually, DNA tests were conducted, and Blassie's identity was established. In 1998, his remains were removed from Arlington National Cemetery and flown back to his family's hometown of St. Louis. Today, the crypt that held the remains of the Vietnam unknown stays empty, and the crypt cover has been replaced with one that has the inscription, "Honoring and keeping faith with America's missing servicemen, 1958 to 1975. For love of country, they accepted death. President James A. Garfield." 21 steps to cross the tomb. Pause for 21 seconds, then 21 steps back. It's a process that's repeated throughout the day. The three unknown will continue to be guarded in this fashion every day of the year, every year of this century, and beyond. We owe them and every service member who has fought to defend this great nation our unending gratitude. Arlington National Cemetery. Honor, remember, explore.
That's pretty good. I'd seen some stuff about the people and the job and the regime that they go through, and then you know, like the, what would you call like that duty. Pretty interesting. Yeah, it's a government-made video.
Pretty good video. I enjoyed it.
Be a place I'd like to visit one day.
don't know if I was there or not. I think I've been to Arlington, but not to the tomb. Is the Marines thing, the Marines putting up the flag, is that at Arlington also?
The Iwo Jima thing?
Well, it's the Iwo Jima flag, but I think it's just the Marine Memorial. But I think that's uh, there also. But a different gate, a different place. But we went there with Haas. Gary says he went there when he was a kid. Oh, Ghost is saying that's not at Arlington. I know it's on the other side of the river, and it's in some kind of a cemetery. Al's saying he was there when he was in grade school. Midnight is saying thanks again. This is for today's about the people that never came home. All right, well, I don't know what else. So I guess we're gonna jump over here. Then I'll start screen sharing again. I've been working on a calendar today, or the calendar website, and I've got a section of it for military stuff, so I figure we could take a look at some of the military holidays. Since this is one of the military, well, a day to remember the military people. So we've got Armed Forces Day, started in 1949, and that's for people that are in service wearing their uniforms today. Single day celebrations stemmed from the unification of the armed forces under the Department of Defense. So I guess when they all came together, they created Armed Forces Day. Everybody's heard of that one, I guess. You don't get the day off, but everybody's aware of it, I think. Has everybody heard of Children of Fallen Patriots Day?
What day are these on? How do you tell what day they're on?
Well, this one's on May 13th.
Oh, okay.
So I think a bunch of them are in May. So Children of Fallen Patriots Day is a day to honor the families of our fallen heroes, especially the children. Another one is Military Spouse Appreciation Day the day before. The contributions and sacrifices of the spouses. Were we talking about this in an after chat or something yesterday, maybe? Where, they separate Memorial Day from Veterans Day from Armed Forces Day. So you've got your people that pay the ultimate price, and then you've got people that serve but aren't anymore, retired or what. And then you've got people that are wearing the uniform today, and they've made a day for each of them. But then, what do you call the people who sacrificed everything along with those servicemen who never came home? The families that never had anyone come home. So they've got days for all them, and then this one isn't for that necessarily, but I guess you could say more of an Armed Forces Day version of that, just a day to recognize the contributions and the sacrifices of the families and the spouses of those serving. So then we got VE Day, day that we stopped fighting World War II in Europe in 1945. That's May 8th. Then you've got Calling Forth Act. I don't know when I got that one in here. Silver Star Service Banner Day, and I guess that would be a day set aside to honor our wounded, ill, and dying military personnel by flying a Silver Star banner. Has anyone heard of that one before?
No, I've never heard of that.
Loyalty Day. American citizens reaffirm their loyalty to the United States and recognize the heritage of American freedom on May 1st. I don't know where that one came from, but I don't think I've ever heard of that one before. We got April 30th, National Military Brats Day. I guess Congress set aside a day each year as Brats Day so Americans can say thanks to those patriots, young and grown, for their dedication and service, or sacrifice in the service of their country. And we had a conversation about that, right? Whether or not that's good or bad for the kids. We've got the Army Reserve's birthday on April 23rd. I should have wrote down the day that they started that. yours.
I'm sure you know G-Webs, but maybe the audience doesn't know on why there's so many military uh, holidays in May.
I don't know. I think that's just when we stopped World War II.
Military Appreciation Month. Right.
Or then also, did
That's
we all
what May is.
stop the Civil War in May? I don't know. I jumped up. So then we got Gold Star Wives Day. And this is a day to remember the spouses who have sacrificed with their loss of their spouses. So not just the spouses that are, active duty, but those who have lost their family members. What were you saying, Dead Horse? Why they're in?
I was saying it was a Military Appreciation Month, and I believe that comes from something called Grand Review of the Armies that started in May, back in 1865. But that's why there's so many, military holidays in the month of May.
And what is that? Is that like just an appreciation type of here's our military, put them on display type of month?
I don't know. I don't want to. Let's say it was a one-time thing, I believe, that happened right after the Civil War, and it was basically them. As far as I know, I could be wrong on this, but it was basically that just a military parade right after the Civil War, and that turned into Military Appreciation Month, and then that turned into the that's why, and then that's what led to all the Memorial Day and everything else being here in May.
We got Vietnam Veterans Day. That's on March 29th, which is significant because that's the last days people had boots on the ground in Vietnam. Well, troops came home. We have a Medal of Honor Day, so to recognize the people that have been recipients of the Medal of Honor. That's March 25th. And I think that's commemorates the 1863 must have been when they first gave out a Medal of Honor. I forget how many there are right now. There's a K-9 Veterans Day on March 13th for the K-9 Corps. More and more of those being enlisted, and more veterans of those every day. So I guess this is just for the veterans of K-9 Corps. Interesting. Of course, we care most about the Dobermans, especially those on Iwo Jima, kept our Marines alive. And right back to it. So, is that where it was? Yeah, K-9 veterans. Then we got the Seabees birthday on March 5th. Navy on March 3rd. The laser gun. Got the National Guard birthday on the 13th. Pearl Harbor Day on 7th. The Civil Air Patrol's birthday is December 1st. Probably some act of Congress created that. Veterans Day would be the November 11th. Now that one, 11/11/11, is from the end of World War I. Armistice Day from World War I. Marine Corps birthday. I guess some people celebrate that. That's November 10th. They're a few months, almost as old as the Army. National Day of the Deployed, to honor the brave men and women who have been deployed and are sacrificing or have sacrificed their lives to fight for our country and acknowledge their families who are separated from. So, so I guess that's anyone who's been deployed. That's interesting. That's October 26th. I don't know if I've seen that one celebrated outside the military before. Did we already talk about Navy birthday? I don't know if we're sneaking up on these things again. We got a Miss Veterans America pageant, and I don't think that's going to be going on for too long, but I guess that's a thing. Gold Star Mother and Families Day is on the 24th. I guess that's different than Gold Star Spouses, who would be the spouse of a deceased service member. This would be the mother and family of the service member. And I don't know. I don't think it's too redundant at all. I think it's kind of cool that they've set aside days to specifically give each of these people who are intimately affected by a loss of a serviceman or woman to get some acknowledgement and to have a day that's established for them. We got the Air Force birthday. They ripped off from the Army. Constitution Day on the September 17th, which is when this Constitution was adopted, I guess, back in 1787. We have a POWMIA, and I think this is one that is like observed on a third Friday of September, as opposed to a specific date. And this is to take time to remember those that are POWs and are missing. And there's no way to know if they're gone or not. Unfortunately, sometimes we fight with people that don't. Horrible things with people. So that's an important one. Got Patriot Day on September 11th, and that has to do with September 11th, 2001. September 2nd is the end of World War II in the Pacific, so that would be VJ Day. We have August 29th, 1997, first when Skynet became self-aware. I don't know why that one's in here. Got the Marine Reserve has a birthday on the 29th of August. National PTSD Awareness Day on the 26th. Airborne gets their own day, 16th, day designated by Congress to honor the airborne forces. And then it was created in 2001. It's interesting, what was I reading where they were talking about, that one movie that's the Russian version of Commando that guy's making, where it's like a scene-by-scene remake of Commando. They were talking about how in Russia they have an airborne day, but their paratroopers get all drunk and rowdy and go out on the streets, and everybody just leaves them get rowdy on the streets. They just go inside and let them do their thing. So our airborne guys aren't that crazy. That was August 16th. This is just a thing I post every once in a while. I guess the picture didn't show up, but I don't want to be a dick when it's actually Memorial Day or whatever. I guess I'm doing it right now on Memorial Day, but I usually try to post something like this once in a while so that people, just a reminder that you don't need to thank veterans who are alive on Memorial Day. Not that it's in bad taste, but it's just, going that extra effort to actually pay attention and know the tradition, I guess. And then, of course, thanking old people, on Armed Forces Day is a waste of time, and thanking people in uniform is a waste of time when it's Veterans Day because they're not veterans yet. So I usually also like to throw in there something about, remember, you can do this without writing it on a flag, or without wadding up a flag and throwing it on the ground and giving it all kinds of moody lighting and then writing something on top of the picture. A lot of times veterans don't like that kind of crap. So just because it's red, white, and blue, don't make veterans are going to love it.
Oh, and it doesn't touch the ground.
Oh, yeah. But I'm saying most of the time when these pictures are being done for their artsy-fartsy, they just throw the flag into a corner and shine light on it so it's all shadowy, and then write something about how they care about the flag means. Anyway, so then we got VJ Day. I don't know why that's different than this other one from whatever, the end of World War II in Japan. Was victory over Japan different than the end of the war? Was like VJ Day different than the actual signing of the peace? I thought that's what VJ Day was. I guess I don't know. Whatever it was from 1945, a few years before me. We got Purple Heart Day. For anybody that's got a Purple Heart, on August 7th, I guess they recognize that they got hurt. Then the Coast Guard gets a birthday on August 4th. The Army Chaplain Corps gets a birthday on the 29th. I don't know how often that kind of stuff gets addressed, but these people are some interesting people. I don't think I've ever talked to a military chaplain who wasn't an interesting person. Buffalo Soldiers from back in the day get a day on July 28th. And I don't know, people like to give our country a bunch of shit, but I think that we're one of the engines for change, to change the world. So I think this is one of those steps. Wasn't always fun or easy, or 2020 hindsight wasn't perfect, but they were steps nonetheless. Korean War veterans, Armistice Day on the July 27th. I don't know if I've ever heard that one being celebrated. USMC War Dogs of World War II, July 21st. I think this is the date that memorial in Tennessee was commemorated. Yeah, on this date, 21st of July 1994, they dedicated this cool Doberman statue to the 25 Marine war dogs that gave their lives liberating Guam. I keep saying Iwo Jima, it was actually Guam. And they served as sentries, messengers, scouts, explored the caves, detected mines and booby traps, and were alert. They were sentries. They were alert to the people lurking in the jungles and whatnot. And we lost 25 of those dogs. Those dogs came from people's homes. They gave their pets to the Marines, and they took the Dobermans because they worked good. They were efficient animals for that work. But a lot of more dogs died. So let's remember that. And then unfortunately, we did horrible things to them after the wars too. But it's not technically their day. That's July 21st, I guess. Then we got, cares about BTF. We already talked about PTS awareness. Maybe there's 2 days for that. We got the start of the Korean War. Nobody celebrates that. Coast Guard Auxiliary birthday. So they've got one. Green Berets have their own birthday, July 19th, 1952. Kennedy came out and recognized that we need something that's one step in the CIA and one step in the uniformed military to do things that can't be done by either one. And we created the Green Berets, who go out in units of 12 people and work outside the standard chain of command, outside the supply chains, and teach insurgents how to fight against, how to resist against their oppressors. And they do that with inspiration and what am I trying to say? Improvisation. Army birthday, June 14th, 2017. We're older than the Marines, so suck it. 10th Special Force Group, there's a birthday for them. Anniversary of D-Day, invasion of Normandy. There's all kinds of more information coming out on that. Imagine I can't even think about how much more knowledge there is about D-Day specifically since I went to high school and now. It's crazy the amount of research, and I think that's a effort of this new media, or a pleasant consequence of the new media. When you get people that have ability to get information out there, when creating interesting product from that accumulation of information, whether it be published or electronic or audio or video or whatever it comes out to, when we have so many different people out there discovering information, there's more reason for people to offer their information and to add their stories and their insight into the mix. And then you get more and more people able to efficiently collect all that data. And again, I think D-Day is an excellent example of something that the story of it, or the experience of it, can never die anymore. It's not going to be like a battle, I don't know, in a World War I, where there's just it's not possible anymore to archive it, to document it. This is one that was probably one of the oldest things that's significant that can be documented in that way. So it's kind of cool to, it's significant in so many ways. I think it's significant in that way as well. That's 1944, June 6th. Then we're back at Memorial Day today, Decoration Day. So where does it come from? Where do we get the tradition of camping? We talked about that a little bit yesterday. You want to take that one, Dead Horse, so I can quit talking for a while?
I'm sorry, what was that, G-Whips?
Where we got the tradition of cooking out on Memorial Day?
Oh, dinner on the grounds is where families after the Civil War would go and you can actually trace it back to the Revolutionary War, but it became prominent with newspapers and stuff and more in the public eye in the Civil War. After the Civil War, people would go to their graveyards, which usually most graveyards during that time were connected to a church, and the graveyards were pretty much right beside or behind the churches. And they would go have a picnic with their lost loved ones, or a dinner, with their lost loved ones on Decorations Day, which turned into Memorial Day. And that's where the barbecue, that's where the whole barbecue thing and barbecuing on Memorial Day comes from, is dinner on the grounds, and where families would go have a meal with a lost loved one.
Well, that's pretty interesting. I've never heard that before.
Yeah, it's like I said, it dates back to the Revolutionary War, but it didn't really become that prominent in the public eye until we had more newspapers and stuff like that during the time of the Civil War, and it became a very, very popular thing. And you can, all sorts of cities and towns would have a huge parade for their lost soldiers, that whoever was from that town, and then all the families would congregate to the local graveyard, and they would have a great big, picnic, basically, and they would literally sit beside their loved ones' graves and have a meal with their lost loved one. It's kind of sobering when you think about it, but that's where the whole history of barbecuing or having a cookout or whatnot, or a big family feast or whatever you want to call it on Memorial Day comes from, was from, having a meal with a lost loved one.
Like, why is that not a thing anymore?
Because it's been commercialized. It's that's what I believe anyway. It's just like a lot of other holidays and stuff like that. It's just gone too commercialized, and the true meaning of that kind of stuff's just been lost to history. Because I don't know if it's that not many people are keeping up with that tradition or spreading that info, but I tend to think that it's more just on commercialism.
Yeah, I had never heard of that. I always thought it was just like everyone usually had the day off, and it was usually nice outside on that time of year. So what do you do when it's hot out? You barbecue.
Well, I'll throw two things. So I remember Memorial Day being a parade. So I always figured the parade came from some kind of military parade, like, people always used to do back in the day. They'd parade their cannons and their soldiers and their flags and their uniforms and their rifles and stuff. And it's just impressive, and it lets everybody kind of say thanks and what. So I figured the parades came from that. But I think obviously came from what you're talking about. I think it was just
oh yeah, you can find even pictures, old pictures and stuff of these parades dating back to the 1880s, 1870s, 1860s, where
Right.
the people who had survived that day would be in the parade along with the families and loved ones of that lost people.
And they'd probably parade to the graveyard, though, and then hang out.
Yeah, exactly. They would parade through town. There's a really good article about the first documented one that has pictures, which occurred, I believe, in St. Paul, Minnesota, and which was the first well-documented one that actually has that you can find pictures of and stuff like that. And they literally just paraded through the town, and then ended up at their local church and cemetery, and then had a picnic with their loved ones. And it's really fascinating history. And I don't know why we don't do that same kind of stuff nowadays. I think a lot of us do. It's just not really advertised the way. It's not advertised is the wrong word. It's just not this doesn't seem to be a thing anymore in the public eye as it used to be, because maybe the Civil War was so fresh back then, and so many people lost somebody, literally, if everyone knew somebody they lost, and yeah, and so maybe it was just more relevant back then because it affected people more, because literally, pretty much everyone lost somebody they loved. So maybe that was it. I'm not sure, but I think it's commercialism that we lost that history to.
Right. Well, I would say back in
May 2nd,
Whoops. So I was going to say, back in the day, before there was telephones even, Civil War days, how are you going to get everybody on track to do something coordinated? You start, on one end of town and everybody sees that, the commotion, and they get together, and that's a way to get everybody to the same place at the same time, without a lot of clocks and effort, right? So I could see the parade being a way to get everybody to the um, cemeteries when that's part of the tradition or what. And we were talking about that a little bit in the was that last night we were talking about this? I think though that when we were looking at it, there's 700,000 people died in the Civil War, and we've only had 1,200,000 people die, soldiers die, period, in the whole history of the country. So that's an amazing amount that were involved back then, I think. And I think even go ahead.
And there's been a lot of things that have come up that saying that record keeping got so bad, especially for the South towards the end of the war, that a lot of people actually put that number up over 1 million lost in the Civil War. A lot of experts put that number up over 1 million lost just during the Civil War.
Okay, so that's my point, is that it affected a lot of people. So a lot of people, and we're gonna be aware of their brothers or fathers and their sons and daughters and wives and lost, right? And then like I was saying, the next generation later, it's grandpas and dads and uncles, and the next generation later, it's great grandfathers and great uncles, right? And then eventually, that Memorial Day is maybe a tradition for your family, but it might not be as much because it's not one. You're not remembering the person.
It didn't affect you. It didn't affect you directly.
Right. You just literally never met the person. So I think that might have something to do with it. But I don't know. I agree with you. There's I don't know if it was deliberate or anything, but yeah, it's certainly frustrating when there's less and less well, I guess awareness of it is really the word, because attention given to it. Shame on media if they don't want to point at it. Like you've mentioned a couple of instances of just ways that media's been weird about it this year and other years. Big deal. Like, we expected them to give a shit. They hate this country. They want to see it fail. They'd be happy to see turmoil because it helps, and they don't have any interest in enforcing tradition or any kind of appreciation for the roots and the foundations of the country. So I don't expect them to do anything, but it is frustrating when the people can't or don't keep that, I guess, high level of awareness this particular day on their own devices. But we're efforting today, and others have been. When I'm searching over here now on the YouTubes for Memorial Day songs or Memorial Day music and stuff, there's tons of it. It's being posted. I'm noticing that some of it's posted during the December, during March, so it's all going up at different times. People are preparing for Memorial Day. So even though it's something that we only celebrate the one day, it is something that's part of our culture. We're aware of it 365.
When I got home tonight, the service I went to, I was told that it was going to be posted up on YouTube. So the first thing I did is I typed in 2018 Memorial Day tribute. And literally in the search results on YouTube, especially the top ones, were all video game channels and guys playing video games. And I was like, wait, what? What's going on? Like, wait, how come I'm getting this search result for typing in 2018 Memorial Day tribute? And literally every other video, especially like all the very top ones, were just all video gamers, like playing video games. And I don't know. I guess if that's your way to tribute, I don't know. I'm not going to say anything about it, but it just threw me really for a loop. I just couldn't believe that's what I was getting in those search results. It's just been diluted down to that point, I think.
Well, it says 2% of the population fought in Vietnam, 12% in World War II. I don't know what the percentage would have been. They said it was 20 million people. So that would have been less, I guess, 5% in Civil War. But, when only 2% of generations, people are affected. easy to take a whole thing for granted, I guess.
And I think that's kind of what's happened, whether it's like, I'm not going to say it's a conspiracy or done on purpose or anything, but I definitely think it has been watered down and diluted over the years, especially when it doesn't seem to touch as many people as it used to. And, literally just on Instagram today, I probably unfollowed like 20 people just because I was going through and I literally saw people trying to badmouth the meaning of Memorial Day and stuff like that. And I just, man, I can't believe it's gotten to that point where we have American citizens living in America that are just like, oh no, like don't celebrate Memorial Day because you're celebrating, something bad. Like don't do it, and I don't understand it. It seems like it's under attack to me. Like that's almost like where it's, I don't know. I don't know. What did you do? What did you guys do for Memorial Day today? Did you guys do anything? Go visit family or go do anything like that?
No, not go anywhere. Just my own things here.
I didn't do anything.
I just went and visited my dad.
Yeah, it's tough. I try to think about, I don't know people that died like in front of me for sure, or like in war or nothing, but I do know people that died. And then you got to balance that with the people you don't know that were, 1,200,000. So it's a crazy number. So I just take some time to think about it and acknowledge it and try to wrap my head around it. But and then the show.
I got something maybe a little controversial, but have you guys noticed anything about Memorial Day becoming just a day for just anyone that's passed, like, in your family or whatever, not soldiers, not armed forces or anything like that, just Memorial Day just being a day like, oh, hey, that's the day that we're going to go to, the graveyard. And,
Wait, are you saying on the day? Like on the actual Memorial Day? Or are you saying
on Memorial Day, like people picking that day to go remember their loved ones, but their loved ones weren't fallen soldiers. That where it's kind of just become a day is like just that's the day you go, to the graveyard to, pay your respects to your lost family members, but not military, not the fallen.
Yeah, I have to default to free country. We're not fascist. There's no obligation or responsibility or necessity to appreciate what got you here. That's what freedom is. But yeah, am I gonna lend you a nickel at the grocery store next time I see you? Maybe not. You can do that if you want. But yeah, it's sort of a spit in the face of the reason that we set aside the day for specifically like the unknown and the people that we do know that, again, paid it all so that others can exist.
Yeah, a guy I work with, he was telling me that his mom always makes him take her to the cemetery in Toledo, Ohio, where his brother's buried. And I was like, oh, did he serve? And he's like, no, he died when he was a baby. And it's like, oh, all right.
That sounds like
I was a little
Day of the
confused.
Dead thing.
Yeah, exactly. I'm all about making a day of memorial for humans that have died, but just for the soldiers' sake, unless they died on the day of Veterans Day. But if for the soldiers' sake, give them their own day.
Yeah, and I don't mind people doing whatever they want on Memorial Day at all. Like you said, it's a free country, and it doesn't bother me one bit. But I just kind of wonder, are these people actually confusing that? Like, do they not know the meaning of Memorial Day, or do they actually confuse it to think that Memorial Day is someone, that's the day you go, visit your lost one's grave or whatnot?
Well, hold on. Adi's saying he thinks it was grandfather who served but he didn't die on a battlefield. I don't think there's any requisite that says person has to die on the battlefield. It's just any service member who have died, right? Or is it supposed to be died in battle?
I thought it was like died in battle or in the scope of the military.
Oh, so I figured it was all soldiers who are no longer, who are deceased, because there's no way to say. I mean, I guess you could call the non-battlefield deceased Veterans Day, but you can't really say that to them.
I've always thought of Memorial Day as mainly celebrating those that, like, paid the ultimate sacrifice in war, or even, in peacetime, but serving in the military, right? And but that doesn't, like, it doesn't matter when we go to clean the graves. It doesn't matter what year is on their gravestone. If they were a veteran, we clean their graves and stuff, because we honor every veteran that has passed away. Is the way I look at it. But I think Memorial Day was specifically set aside for men and women who died serving.
But again, you're saying who died while wearing the uniform, but again, like, because like a pallet of cannons fell on them in a warehouse, that would still be
yes,
correct.
But yeah, because they're serving, like.
Yep, whether it was a helicopter crash in Oklahoma or whether it was in Afghanistan, or it doesn't matter if they were wearing a uniform, if they were active duty at the time. Yeah, that's what I think Memorial Day was originally intended for, right?
But if somebody serves and then retires and then lives a happy life and then dies of old age later, that person not on Memorial Day, that person on Veterans Day, you're gonna.
Well, no, I still honor those people on Memorial Day. So anyone who served that has passed away.
That's exactly what I was saying. Is if you have served and you are no longer alive, then you're getting thrown into Memorial Day, because it's, again, a day to think about the people who you can't say it to.
And that's the way I like to look at it, but I don't think that was the original intention of it, if that makes sense. I think the original intention, and everything I've read, points to just like someone who died in the line of duty, right? And but I look at it personally. I look at it as like anyone who has served, who has long passed. Because let's face it, like, it doesn't matter what you did. If you served, you gave something for this country, and I think you deserve that. You deserve that respect. Now that they're gone, they still deserve that respect, that they served their country, whether it was in war or not. Doesn't matter. Like I said, it doesn't matter what dates on their headstone. They deserve that respect, I think, on Memorial Day. Every veteran.
All right, so Veterans Day, once known as Armistice Day, was created as a federal holiday to commemorate the end of fighting in World War I, November 11th, 1918, according to the Department of Veterans Affairs. 20 years later, Congress designated November 11th as Armistice Day to honor World War I veterans and to celebrate the cause of world peace. In 1954, and after World War II and Korean War, Congress changed the name of the holiday to Veterans Day to recognize American veterans of all wars. Memorial Day has an even older and more complicated story, with more than 24 cities laying claim to its origins. For another page on the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs website, Congress declared Waterloo, New York, as the holiday's birthplace in 1966. 1966? That has to be a typo. Yeah, that must mean 1866, because now it says there's a ceremony on May 5th, 1866, honored local veterans who had served in the Civil War. Businesses closed and flags flew at half staff. So veterans who had served in the Civil War. 2 years later, on that date, the head of the Union Veterans Organization, called Grand Army of the Republic, established Decoration Day to lay flowers on the graves who died in the war. It was later declared that that day should be May 30th, a date that is believed to have been chosen because flowers would be in bloom nationwide. Oh man, just thinking of not close. Stupid. Let me see if I can refresh this.
And that date would be 1868, and hence the 150 year.
Yep. So in 1971, Congress declared Memorial Day a national holiday and placed it on the last Monday in May, though some people still call it Decoration Day. Many people confuse Memorial Day and Veterans Day. Memorial Day is for remembering and honoring military personnel who died in the service of their country, particularly those who died in the battlefield or the results of war sustained in battle. While those who died are also remembered, Veterans Day is the day set aside to thank and honor all who have served honorably in the military in wartime or peacetime. In fact, Veterans Day is largely intended to thank living veterans for their service, to acknowledge that their contributions to our national security are appreciated, and to underscore the fact that all those who have served, not only those who died, have sacrificed and done their duty. So again, that kind of seems to me like Memorial Day is for everybody, but then kind of extra the people that died in battle, but everybody.
That's the way I look at it.
Let's see. Veteran is the last word. Veterans Day does not include an apostrophe, but does include an apostrophe S at the end of veterans. It's not a day that belongs to veterans. It's honoring all veterans, whatever. So I don't know if that clears it up at all, but it's the country. It's a free country. So honestly, actually do what you want, right? Celebrate it how you want. If you want to be one of those guys that goes to the beach and hangs out and just thinks of it as a 3-day weekend, I don't think anybody's gonna fault you for it. Like I say, we're just not necessarily gonna fight you over for Memorial Day next year or something. Right? Well, let's see. My school friends had kids write letters to veterans last week. Well, totally awesome. That is Veterans Day, and I didn't say anything because making kids notice service people is usually good. Yep, that's frustrating, but probably the way to play it. Let's see. All right, well, that's dead air, so I think at that point we can end it. Appreciate everybody who joined us tonight, and we'll be back with more regular program. It looks like, Angelina, where are you at? Are you back at your house?
I am at home, yeah. I'm at home.
So you just blew right through to, so I'm not even stopping here.
Well, it was like 5 a.m. when we started.
Can we do a quote of the day real quick?
You got one.
In the end, we will remember not the words of our enemies, but the silence of our friends. And that was MLK Jr. that said that about Memorial Day.
Words to remember.
So we'll be back tomorrow. Again, thanks everybody for joining us today. Turn off everything if you want, maybe before you're heading to bed, and just take an extra minute to go look up at the sky or look at a flag that's waving somewhere with a light on it, hopefully, and then do what you want to do. You guys want to say anything else before we head out?
There is going to be an after hours chat on gun channels. You guys want to check that out?
Right on. So we'll have Tater Tube and all kinds of neat stuff happening throughout the week, but we'll talk about that later in the week. Thanks, Dead Horse, for jumping in and all your efforts towards keeping people real on appreciation of the day. And it's 360 days. You know, how long does it take to really spend some time on one day? Just, I think that's worth the effort. So I appreciate it. Angelina, good to hear you're back, and looking forward to hearing about all the adventures. And I'm going to end it with just a quick another one from Reagan here at the end.
The guys and gals of gunwebsites.com encourage you to take a CCW class every year, practice at least once a month, and carry every day. Thanks for watching gunwebsites.com.
Day of ceremonies and speeches. Throughout America today, we honor the dead of our wars. We recall their valor and their sacrifices. We remember they gave their lives so that others might live. When he spoke at a ceremony at Gettysburg in 1863, President Lincoln reminded us that through their deeds, the dead had spoken more eloquently for themselves than any of the living ever could, and that we're living could only honor them by rededicating ourselves to the cause that so willingly gave a last full measure of devotion.